Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube art tutorial channel. I'm a professional artist working from my studio in Essex in the UK and painting plein air in the countryside. This week I'm painting flowers in the outdoor undercover space in my garden outside my studio. Well, here we go with some more fiddly bits. Give a depth of colour there, and that comes up at the bottom there like that. Well, that's the scene on a rather damp day. As you can see, a very wet day, dull, but there's still colour there. So what I've done, I've tried to depict colour that I've seen in a very loose fashion, and we'll take this around. Well, I'm just getting set up, but I just want to show you, I've made myself a little tray here that will fit just under the painting area, like that. Made it yesterday, and sits at varying heights. I can put my paint gear on there and use that. So quite happy. There's even room for the coffee, look. Put that down there. Lovely jubbly. Got a cloth on it at the moment, but got a feeling that won't be long before it's absolutely filthy. The board, I mean. Cheers. I better crack on. Well, there's the clump of roses that just stand out really white against the greenery in the background. So that's my viewpoint. So I'm going to endeavour to put an impression of those down onto my watercolour paper. And of course, that's my setup. Well, it's only going to be a quick impression. I'm using the large Pro Art Sablesque 45 mop brush. It's the number 8, this one. Gone for the big stuff really, and what I want to do is to do some form of sort of background, and the background is not going to really relate to what the colour is. Not putting the fence and everything in, so I'm using plenty of water, because this is going to be, it's not going to dry very quickly. I'm using the Payne's Grey or Windsor Grey. This is the red shade if you are getting very technical. And what I need, do you know, I'm going to use Indian red, because I want the background to be cool, sort of a nothing colour really, quite blue I suppose, a little bit of red in it. There you go. I think that probably does it for a start. And right, now I've got overhanging, I'm going to bring in some overhanging leafing from a bean tree that overhangs the back of the garden, which is quite nice actually. Don't mind that. So that's the overhanging leafing from that. Then as I head down, just get a little bit more blue in that top corner. Give an impression, if you like, of possibly a little bit of sky, although we can't see that today, certainly not blue. Anyway, it's all very, very damp actually. Now I'm remixing, and I'm using a bit more red this time as I head down. Now those, it's quite an overhang there. Now we come to what I would class as the area of roses, and there's also, there you go, see where the rain has blown in onto the water, you've got all those little splotches. Isn't that fun? I've got a sort of like a bonsai tree there, that it's a horse chestnut tree that I've actually bonsai'd off. So I'm going to include that in its it's hanging down like that. So I'm painting the negative, leaving the positive shapes, which is quite fun to do. It's well worth the effort actually. A bit more red going in now. And I'm heading off down to the, just introduce that. Don't just go from red to blue or blue to red. Try and introduce that in. Right, now we're looking here at the roses. Now this is interesting because we've got to somehow get clumps of roses or rose heads in the form that I can actually see them. Just put a little bit that side just to marry it up. And they're quite right, I like that. And the key to this is it's not the shapes that you're forming, it's the impression, which is just pigeons flying around, which is okay, as long as I don't pinch all the food from the small birds. Anyway, let's work our way down. Oh, and then of course we're working our way around here, and we have stems, so I'm going to try and give an impression of some stems like that with the point of the brush. They may turn out to be slightly thicker stems than, indeed very impressionist version of stems. But then we have some more there, and this just floats away at the back. Yeah, I think we can do something with that. Right, what have we got here? We've got a clump there, or a little clump there standing up. One or two more in the background there. There we go. I'm trying to see when they're standing up. I'm trying to get the shape of a rose as well. It's impressionist, but hopefully we can evolve and turn those into rose heads in effect. There we go. And they're clumps, and there's another clump there. And we come down like this. Good. Now here I'm adding more blue. I don't want that to dry, so let's just add more blue, because I'm going to have the light coming from this side, and then we come into where that bean tree is, and we're given an impression of overhanging bean tree there. We're gonna elaborate on all of that later on. It's not a major. This is an impression of what I see. What have we got behind there? We've actually got a lilac. Okay, let's just give an impression of a lilac tree, or the lower part of the lilac there, because that's quite green and quite got lots of sort of yellows there overhanging, and they do actually hang a bit like that, but whether we can give that impression, not sure. More red, more blue to the rose again, and this is the idea of that. There we are. So the leafing is going to be darker than the rose heads. There we are. See the way I'm trying to get the feeling of stems are running. And then we have some more flower heads there. And the only way you can see them is because you're painting them light, or leaving them light against the dark edges. We do actually have a rose there, so I'm getting a little complicated here. What colour's the rose? Ah, pink. Okay. Right, so let's see whether we can pick up a pinky rose heads of some form. They're only small heads, and of course that goes into that, and that goes, that's all right, I'm just speaking aloud really here now. Just got to finish this side with some more roses really, and these are going to be more subtle. You know, this is my interpretation of what I'm seeing. Oh, there was some more roses there, but, and there's another clump there we go. So it's an interpretation rather than a complete depiction. Right, into that now I'm putting some yellow, cadmium yellow, because I want it to come up slightly green now. So because we're getting to the lower part where there would be a little bit of green showing from other planting. As you can see, I'm getting lots of varying bits and bobs on there. Put that in a pot like that, which is the shape of the pot it's actually in anyway. So there you go. And then we're coming down a bit more yellow now to bring that foreground forward and to give us just a little bit of interest there. Look at that. While it's still wet, bring up a bit of that yellow quite stiffly down that bottom to balance up the tree that's coming there. And then in the lower area I'm actually going to use quite a bit of red into that, because I want that to show up the green. If you know, as you probably know, I always put reds in, particularly where I've got greens. And that, to me, pretty much finishes the first washes of colour. Now I've turned to the smaller mop because I just want to put in some real dark sort of warm tones. I'm using burnt sienna here with a bit of that red, because I want a bit of the Indian red, burnt sienna, touch of the blue, the Windsor, but not too much, because I want some earthy, darker earthy tones. In actual fact, I need a bit more of the blue, and that's it. It gives me a slightly greeny touch, because in places down in the lower area I want there to be lights and darks, particularly around there. Don't want to cover too much of the, see the way I'm dropping that in just before it dries, because that's not vital, but it saves all the hard edges interfering with the flower heads and what have you. Nice soft feel to the lower part. Well, that's the view. Close up a little closer. So that's roughly, and this is progress so far. It's coming along. Well, the next thing I'm going to put in the lovely yellowing or yellow green of the bean tree there. Quite a bright yellow to start. Don't mind a bit of bleed from the colour. It's just beginning to dry, so it's drying off quite nice really, considering. Nice clumps of these large leaf areas that are overhanging. Leave some white. Vital that we leave white. And while I have this yellow, I'm actually going to use a lemon yellow, or cadmium lemon, for what in effect are parts of a lilac tree that are overhanging there, and just putting those in at random, some over the white and some they're just hanging like that. That's okay. And what else we got? That's white. Right, we've got pink, so we've got to clean this brush completely. And in my palette, the best pink I have, or the best colour to get pink, is the alizarin crimson, like that. It's the alizarin crimson. So I've got the pinks there, just a little bit solid. I love the texture that this rain is just giving. This rain just keeps giving. Whether we want it or not, it just keeps giving. But there you go. That's the fun of plein air. Although I'm under the shade, or the cover to a certain extent, it's still got those little specks of rain. It's just coming in. Am I worried? Well, actually, probably am really, but there you go. Right. Yeah, just leave it, shall I? Could put a brolly up, but not going to. Just like the idea of the stippled effect, really, that it gives. Right, now the green for the old horse chestnut tree. There. Lovely. Now I don't want that to merge at the top, so I'm leaving some little touches unpainted, particularly where I think it's wet. Don't want that to get into that. And then going to paint that down like that. And then there's a branch that heads out there, branch that heads out there. Leave some little touches of white against that darker background. There we are. So that's the start of what we can see is the old horse chestnut tree in the background. Just going to mix a grey now. It's quite easy. Just the three primaries. I'm using a yellow, a blue, not too much of that blue, and a red. And I'm using raw sienna for this because it won't come up to green grey. There we are. That's probably what I'm looking for. What sort of grey is it? A bit more bluey grey actually, so let's add a bit more blue to that. And it wants to be fairly light so it shows up. What sort of grey is that? Right, a bit more blue in that. There we are. Very, very weak sort of grey. Dirty grey, which is exactly what it is actually. Lovely. Right, while that's drying, I'm going to fill in this corner with an overhanging branch, and I'm going to go very dark with this for no reason other than the fun of it really. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the Windsor Blue, and I'm going to go with the Indian Red again. There you go. And this has got to be very, very dark because I just feel like it needs something dark overhanging. So we've got sort of like an overhanging tree of some sort. It starts to set the scene for the tone values that will be required for the rest of the picture. and it pulls your eye in from that right hand side, just fills that in. You know, I'm making this up as I go along really, but that is the fun of painting on plein air in the rain, a subject that totally wasn't intended, but because I couldn't get out into the countryside today, it's made me think about sort of subject that I'd like to paint. And this, looking at those roses, sort of like inspired me. Got a little area sort of under semi cover, so don't want too much of a gap there, a little bit of overhanging there, and then I'm going to bring this dark colour down. You see, it's not all about colour, it's about tone. If you notice, you know, it's the tone of the whole thing that is beginning to give it a sense of reality, you know. And what I'm going to do, oh, it's still wet there, that's handy, that'll blend nicely. I'm going to leave just a little bit showing there, but nothing too much. And of course now I can actually shape up the leafing on the top there if I like, and leave some little white touches that side, and of course on the overhanging edges there like that. And now I'm going really dark with this. You can see where the light is beginning to show. Oh well, there you go. That's quite nice. I think we can accept that. Adding some yellow to that now, because this will make it slightly green as I come down to the lower area of that. And I'm going to be a bit more water, because I don't want this to be too strong now. I want that to gradually blend in with the rest of the background to a certain extent. Look at that. There we go. And then all we do is just melt it in. That's a technical term. Don't remove the paint underneath. It's vital that the paint underneath remains attached to the paper. There we are. There. I just want to make that a bit of better shape, that's all. Right, so we've got some depth that side. That's good. I'm adding brown to that green mix now. Burnt sienna. I'm going to create a path or something that is just along that bottom edge. Like that. And as it goes out of picture, my old favourite, stick a red in. That's it. Now we can pull this burnt sienna through, blend that out like that, but have a hard edge where that sits on. There we are. Look at that. Ooh. And then I'm going to add a yellow to that to give myself some earthy green too, because that rose sits in sort of like a bed of some sort. So that's going to be an earthy green. I'm enjoying this actually. It's unusual for me, as you know, I'm not a flower artist, but got a hair there, don't know where that come from. Can I get it out? Yes, I can. That's useful. And I'm just lifting up now, trying to give a sense of a garden sort of area, and then that's going to gradually get mixed in to that rose. There we go. Well, I've mixed cadmium yellow with some Prussian blue, or Windsor blue, green shade if you wish, and I'm just going to try and show, that's it, that's the sort of leafing I'm looking for. It's a little bit on the heavy side. Heavy, I mean a little dark. Anyway, the brush will gradually lose the colour. Now, this is going to be a very busy painting, but I'm hoping that it has some form of sort of life, that I hope it takes a life of its own. I believe I've heard that term before. Never been there before, but let's see whether that actually happens for me. Which it's got to carry on behind that, there, like that, and then it's just got to be a little darker around those areas there. And now I'm using, as the brush runs out of paint, I'm using the side of the brush now just to elaborate on that whole thing. It's nothing like a laburnum, but then again, none of these are anything like what they should be, so there we go. Mustn't take away that freshness. That's what we've got to remember. I'm turning to the rigger now. Number 5, Pro Art, Series 103. And I'm going to use burnt sienna for this, in that little area there. I'm going to use Windsor blue again. That's the only blue I've used. And if you can stick with one blue and a red and a couple of other colours, one yellow, perhaps 2 yellows, it's a benefit really, I think. You get a much better end result. And going to put in the impression of this tree that's running up there, the lovely bean tree. And these bean trees, the branches sort of like scoop and hang. And it's coming right from the back here. Well, mine is anyway. Goes out of picture, so we've got to take it right the way out of picture. Like that. Quite a substantial feature in that garden. It's getting quite large. Go, and then finish those off somewhere at the top of that rose there. I'm actually going to pick up another one that heads up, which goes behind that, another part of that tree, and that gets mixed up with that one. There we go. So that's the start of supporting that. What else can I do? Right, more dark brown green for the roses. Right, now this is interesting. Now obviously they're full of water, purely because it's raining, as I keep on about, but never mind. There we are. Don't want to make these stems too large, because they never look right in my experience, although I haven't got a lot of experience of painting. flowers, but hopefully I'm having some success of a form anyway. And just take that like that. Yeah, that one can come from that one. Making this up as I go along for obvious reasons. Yep. Now I'm looking for the leafing. Right, so we've got lots of leafing hanging over there. They're sort of like that sort of shape. All sorts of leafing hanging there. Quite a bit of leafing over the back. That's what's showing up the greenery or the light of that, of those rose heads there. There we are, just an impression, nothing more. Just a flick of the brush can sometimes be sufficient to suggest what you're trying to achieve. Well, that's my opinion. Whether I'm being successful or not is debatable in some ways, but there we go. And this is going to be quite green here. This is going to be some form of other plant, I think, because that rose doesn't extend to there, so we just fill that up with whatever we have. A bit of this and a bit of that. Bit of my old sort of technique just coming through. I do like this this area of mist there. I like that because that pulls your eye in. Perhaps round the back, that holds in at the top. Yep. Now this little rose here is actually quite spindly, but it's got more brown sort of, quite spindly if I can get the brush pointed correct. And that area there is still coming out of the damp area. So I like the idea of that. So it's soft, it's softening. See where I put that brush stroke in, then it softens, which I think adds an appeal to this sort of area. And there again, the green, a bit more yellow in the green in this one. So we're going to have just a little bit more yellowing. Flower heads are a bit smaller than that, but there we are. Look, just balm the paint on. Balm it on. That's a technical term, isn't it? There we are. So we've lost the edges, which is fine. Well, there's the setup, and that's what I'm meant to be painting. Roses floating around in the wind on a rather damp day here in Essex. Well, I haven't got too much more to do because I don't intend labouring over this. All I'm going to do now is mix up a shadow colour. So that's the blue again, and this time I'm actually going to use the alizarin crimson just to ring the change. I like to have a different shadow colour than anything else. You know, you can put all the colours together and mix a grey if you wish. But now I'm going to start off here because we need some shadow there. It is very, very dark, but that helps to hold in that side. One or two little touches unpainted. we go. So that's held in that corner like that, and of course now I'm going to go clean that brush. I want to go a bit more blue. Ah, there we go. That's will always come up green anyway for the shadowing of that. Just take a little bit off the brush there. Don't want to paint over too many of those overhanging areas. And then you come down like that, bit of dappled light over the top of that area there. See the way I'm just dappling that light, just softening that area. There we go, just getting rid of those edges there. Right, now roses, right, underside and in the centre, underside and in the centre, bit more of the blue, bit more of the red, but a little darker for these passages. Got some white ones there as well, that's interesting. See how they sparkle into life when you put a bit of shadow on the undersides and over them in places. Bit there as well, bit there. Try and show one or two, a little bit of form and shape, not too much. Just looking at the flower heads, or in the centre there, the centre there, underside, a little bit in the top there, just so they look a little bit like roses. That's all I'm worried, to be quite honest. I'm lucky to get anything off today in this weather. But that's how I am. Just love to paint. Oh, and of course, we do have now fill of the branch, the leafing that overhangs on that. It's raining nicely now, and I'm in fear of ruining this, so I'm going to move in just a touch more. Well, there we are. I'm not in danger of it getting out of hand now, so that's I can continue with this painting process. And finally I'm going to use the rigger to finish off. Now the rigger I'm going to use just to elaborate on some of the small little areas, and also this pot is interesting because it's pretty much square like that, and it does have a corner to it, and it's got sections within that. Like that. Gives it a bit of interest, doesn't it? There we go. Right, now I need a dark trunk to hold that tree. Should be dry, but if not, hey ho. That's life. There we are, that's like a bonsai. I've had it many years, this tree, and I'll just keep it as a bonsai really. Bit more blue, bit more brown. I want this to be really, really dark. There we go. That's better. That's it. Now, with this really, really dark colour, I'm going to put in some additional pieces here. More water with that. I've only used that blue that I've got in there. If you put it into the area, then unfortunately, into water, then unfortunately you can lose the depth of colour. So that really denotes a shadow at the back of that pot, like that. And then we obviously have bits and bobs going on in the borders there. Just go further up from that, back of the pot a bit, just to justify that corner. Get too close to the pot, to the stem. There we go. And then this just comes in that side, so that's pretty much attended to that. Little dark touches here and there on the undersides of some of those leaf areas. Just like the idea of doing that. Just sort of gives it a bit more of a dainty effect, if you like. I think so, anyway. But that would be purely an optional extra if you are painting this or intend to paint a similar subject on a rather wet, damp day like this. Okay, now we have a rose here, but of course we're not depicting that. And oh yes, we are, but we're just suggesting this. See that? Just with the point of the brush, just because I like that bit of depth there. So we're suggesting, well, it doesn't have to be a rose actually. There we are, look at that, look. That's improved that little area immensely. Well, here we go with some more fiddly bits. Quite dark in this lower area. I want to have some areas of dark here, because if you don't get darks, you can't see the lights, or you don't somehow appreciate the light areas. So, and of course this area needs some form of shadow in that lower area, like that. There we go. Balm that down a bit. Goes just behind there and just gets lost. Gives a bit of interest there. You know, lights and darks, interest, no interest, you know. Same at the top here now. Splashes of interest. Plenty of blues. Plenty of blues going in. Splashes of interest. It's still damp, so that's interesting. That's a benefit, isn't it? And that tree, whatever it is overhanging that bean tree. Oh, I've got a technique there, look at that. Hang on a minute. See if we can get a bit of that overhanging there like that. There you go. Look at that. Well, I never done that before. Hope I don't regret it. Problem is, now I've found this new technique, I'm putting it everywhere, which is not the ideal thing to do. A bit more brown in that mix now. Come away from the blue, and then we're just going in the bottom here around this rose, because there's a bit of colour there, a bit of depth of colour there. Notice how I pick up any sort of like dark liquid water that's on the brush, on the palette, and pick it up on the brush. There we are, and that I think must soon be the end. Let's just kill that corner off with a bit of colour like that. Get a depth of colour there, and that comes up at the bottom there like that. Okay, little place for signature. Good, that's it. Well, that's the scene on a rather damp day. As you can see, a very wet day, dull, but there's still colour there. So what I've done, I've tried to depict colour that I've seen in a very loose fashion. I'm going to take the surround away and sign it up. Well, there we are. The surround has been taken away, and all I'm going to do, I think it's dry there, I'm going to sign my name bottom right hand corner in the paint that I've used. And as I always recommend, please sign all of your work, even if you're just learning. You need a signature on there, vital. Well, there you go. Just goes to show that on a damp day like this, find a bit of undercover or cover so that the watercolour doesn't get too wet, and even just a flower bed makes a lovely subject. Hope you've enjoyed watching that, and if you have, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to click on notifications, and you'll receive more videos in the future. Most of mine are landscapes, but in this particular instance I was confined to my undercover outdoor area out in the garden, so rather chilly, but I thought I'll get something down, and I like the look of the roses just round the corner. Take care and happy painting.